Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Julie Ambani, commonly known as Jules, and on this channel we talk about books, literature, development, and a sprinkle of other things here and there. If that sounds like your cup of tea, please consider subscribing to this channel and giving this video a thumbs up. Let's go. So in today's video, we're going to be having something I want to call the Battle of Books, which is something I'll be doing often, where I'll be taking two books or more with a similar vibe, similar level of hype, I think, and just comparing them to each other to see which one I will prefer. I'm definitely not doing it in a malicious form of way. I think all the books I'll be talking about will be either good or bad, in my opinion, and it's just like a fun thing to do. So if maybe I pick one author over your favorite author, please don't catch feelings. It's just a video. So in today's Battle of Books, we have two books that I just recently read in the month of September. The first one is this, Kintu by Jennifer Nansubuga Makumbi, an Ugandan author. This book was highly recommended, and particularly Joanne campaigns for it, and Steph. I think those are the two people who literally made me pick up this book. So this is definitely a bookstagram made me buy it, and I do not regret buying this. The second contender will be this, The Death of Vivek Oji by Akwaeke Emezi. Again, this is a bookstagram made me buy it sort of book. I think Frankie is largely responsible for me being interested in this book, but a few other people as well. I just don't remember, but definitely a bookstagram made me buy it, and one that I'm not regretful that I got. I enjoyed it. So to kick us off, I'll give you a brief summary about each book, kind of what the plot is in each book. Then we'll go into discussion one after the other, compare a few things, then I'll finally tell you which one I liked better of the two. So I'll start with Kintu. Essentially, Kintu is a story about a generational curse. I'll try and summarize it as best as I can. It starts off with the patriarch of the family affected by the curse, who is Kintu Kida. He is from the 1700s, pre-colonial Uganda, back when the Kabakas were ruling everything, and a new Kabaka came into power, and Kintu had to make this long journey to go and pay their respects and welcome the Kabaka, because I think, if I'm not wrong, Kintu was the advisor to the Kabaka. Kintu also had some adopted children, and one of these children had to make the journey with him. In the course of this journey, Kintu accidentally hits this child on the head, and the child collapses and dies. It wasn't intentional, it was just a freak accident that resulted in death. But when Kintu came back home, he did not reveal this to the child's biological father, and the father kind of knew something is amiss, and eventually it ends as the father tells Kintu, I'm going to look for my son. If I find him, I'll come back and apologize for these allegations I've made against you. But if I don't find him, you will know insufferable pain. You will wish death could take you. Like you and your family's family, you'll know so much pain. And true to his word, that's kind of the story we get here. Like generation after generation after generation, we just see this quote-unquote curse manifest in different ways, from the 1700s up till 2004, which is when kind of like there's a homecoming or homegoing of all the different members of this family, where they actually now discuss how to go forward. So I think that's the best summary I can give about Kintu at the moment. The book is divided into different sections. It's kind of like different short stories collected together, correlated, but also just individual stories, because it's about different generations in the family and how the curse manifests in different generations. On the other hand, we have The Death of Vivek Oji by Akwaeke Emezi, and this story follows the life and death of Vivek, a biracial boy growing up in Nigeria. It starts by outrightly informing you that Vivek Oji died, and how he died is a bit of a mystery. So the story unravels into bringing out the circumstances around Vivek's death, how people interacted with him when he was alive, and how people interacted with him after he died. It has a number of heavy themes, but is beautifully written. The prose is spectacular, and we get to really interact with the life of this odd person who is Vivek and how he died. Basically, I don't think I can say much more without spoiling this particular book. Next, I'll move on to what I liked about both books, and I'll start with Kintu. First of all, I'll just go ahead and say it. This is how I feel African stories should be written. This year I've read a lot of books, and the only other book I've said this same statement about is The Master of Gin by P. Jelly Clark, which I'll probably talk about later. But this book is how African books should be written. The culture depicted in this book has literally taught me so much about Uganda. Yeah, for all those of you who say you can't learn by reading fiction books, I have learned a lot from this book. It basically felt like a history lesson of sorts, because the genre of Kintu it's a historical fiction. So it did feel like a lot of history is being shown. Jennifer did not hide from expressing the Ugandan culture, and I was doing my research and I saw that she spent 10 years working on this book, and you can see it. You can see in the work that she delivered in this book that yes, she gave it her all. There was no censoring, there was no unnecessary translation. She's writing in an unapologetic Ugandan voice, and that's what she did. I really loved that about this book. She showed the Ugandan culture even pre-colonial times. Like one of my favorite scenes was when Kintu Kida's son was about to get married. I think he was called Baale, and they have this men coming round to sit him down and tell him what to expect about marriage, and that is so African. Normally I see it for women. I don't know that men do it, but I see it a lot for women, where your aunties and other women come and tell you, what to expect. But it was so well depicted here in terms of being a husband, being a father, satisfying your woman, and all that. It was so interesting. I also particularly liked the pre-colonial part of this book, the depiction of how the Kabakas are like the kings, how they ruled, the thirst for powers. It was sort of Game of Thrones-ish, but this came out before Game of Thrones, but like they brought that out properly, how brother will kill brother just to be in power, how a wife would want to remain the mother of the king and do anything to protect that position. Honestly, it's one of the best written African books I've seen out there. The writing was easy. It wasn't heavy, like you can't follow, so I also really enjoyed that. There were different themes captured in this book, such as religion. There's one in the generational families, there's one who were fanatics when it comes to religion, and it just goes to show you how much religion can, if consumed without really knowing what you're doing, it can really mess up your life. There was themes of incest, there was themes of colonialism, mostly pre-colonialism and post-colonialism. I found it so interesting that Jennifer decided to not include the actual colonial part of the history of Uganda. It goes down, you can see the rulers down from Kabakas up to Idi Amin, and I got to learn so much about the different regimes, the different problems that Ugandans experienced. It was the writing here and the cultural aspect give this book, like it gives what it needs to give. That's what I'll say. Then we have The Death of Vivek Oji. Before going into this book, so many people told me, you're going to be sad, it's a sad book. I didn't get that. I think mostly because the death was not a surprise. Honestly, it's in the title, so it didn't come as a surprise. However, one thing I'm going to give Akwaeke Emezi hands down is her writing style is superb. It's superior. She writes so well. I just found myself very engrossed in the story of Akwaeke Emezi. This is my second Akwaeke book to read, the first being Pet. And even in Pet, there was some heavy themes, despite it being a very tiny book and marketed for young adults, which I'm not too sure about that, but I'll do that in another video. This also really carried some heavy themes. Its main theme, I believe, was sexuality, because Vivek Oji, all I can say is he was born a man and died a woman, and in a setting like Nigeria, that is definitely not what the society will easily accept. I'm not too sure, maybe I didn't get the time frame where this book was written in, but it was definitely not this modern society where such behavior, such is accepted as the norm. As per the book setting, people did not even like to see men out here walking with long hair or anything to just suggest that you might be a homosexual or anything of that sort, and you could easily be killed because of that. And Akwaeke Emezi really brought out that theme in a story in such a way that it wasn't exhausting to read about. She also really brought out the theme of family and religion as well. Yeah, there's a lot of religion that was brought out here. You know, it's so interesting. Maybe one of these fine days we should have a discussion of religion and Africa and colonialism. All these three things seems to tie in together, because in a lot of these black books where religion is brought in, there's some form of extremism, because it was in Kintu and it was definitely here. Extremism in such a way that they want to pray out demons from you by, you know, beating you, all those crazy things. Another thing I really loved about this book, it wasn't long. If you compare this to this, it's almost 2 times. It wasn't long, and I think I've said this before, for someone who reads a lot of fantasy books that are long and so complicated, I really do enjoy when I get short books that are straight to the point and are captivating at the same time. So for this, the writing style and the length were the winner for me. What I did not enjoy about Kintu, and this I think might be just because of my own preferences, I don't really like historical fiction books. I think I've only read 2, unless there's one I've read that I'm not aware of. The first historical book I read was Pachinko, and now I think this is the second one. And as much as the story is entertaining and all, I don't like the whole, especially in Kintu, I really didn't like the 5,000 characters that were here. By the time I was getting to the last sector, half of the characters I couldn't remember them. It was like just kind of going with the vibe, like you know them but you can't really place which story they are from. But maybe that's also just me, because I know there's people who really love such books. So I didn't like that there was so many characters in this book. I get it, I understand why they had to be so many. It's a historical fiction crossing several generations, but for me I just felt like, oof, for such a thick book, my goodness, it took a lot to even keep track of what was happening, and that for me made it tiring. For this, what I didn't like about it is that I don't know if that I was having too much high expectation when going into it, but I felt like there's something that I was missing. I can't place a finger as to what I was missing, because I rated this a 4 out of 5 star, and the reason is because that 1 star, there's something I was looking for in this book that I don't know what it is, that I felt was missing. It's so odd, I can't really explain it, but I just felt like this story could have been more. I feel like it could have been more. Or is it that I just felt like Vivek Oji just died in a very uneventful manner? I don't know. I felt like there could have been more. By the time I was getting to the end of the book, it was weird. I guess also because you already knew Vivek Oji will die, so I'm not sure like what the climax of this book was. That's the point. I'm not sure what the climax of this book was for me. I can't really tell, because it's kind of like I knew the climax from the word go. So the rest of the book was just like, okay, now let's find out what happened. And there wasn't nothing particularly eventful that gave it the wow factor, in my opinion. Not to say it's a bad book. Again, this is one of the best books I've read this year, actually. It's very good, but I think maybe I just had a little more expectation. But also considering the size, maybe we can't really fault it for that. So now, the battle of the books. If I was told to give an award between Kintu and The Death of Vivek Oji, which book will get the award? I'm going to have to be honest and say Kintu will probably get the award, and that's just based on the culture, the richness, the Africanness that's found in this book. It's so refreshing to me to read books where the author isn't bothering to translate native language. The author is not censoring the Africa that she's writing to be digestible for different audiences. The author is writing her truth, talking her talk, and that's that. Period. Dot. So I think this was my winner. I gave this book 4.5 stars out of 5. The 0.5 is because I really don't like historical fiction, but I rounded it up to 5 stars when writing my review because this is a good book. Anyone who enjoys historical fiction will love this book, so this was a good book. Having said that, don't get me wrong, I'm not discrediting this and another very good book. I'm just saying if I were to choose again, knowing what I know now, and I had only money for one book, this is the book I will buy. If you've been debating between these two books, which book you should read, this is the book you should read first. Then read this because you should also read this, but this is the one you should read first. Thank you so much to everyone who gave me peer pressure to read this book. It's a book I'll definitely reread sometime in the future. And thank you also for anyone who made me read this book. I'm not too sure that I'll reread it anytime soon, but it was a good read. But Kintu, Jennifer Makumbi, I'm now curious to read her other books, and I hope this was not the climax of her books. Then I go read her other books and feel so disappointed, but I really enjoyed this. I enjoyed it. I admit it's overly descriptive and long, but there's something in this. This definitely goes in my top 10 for 2022 reads. This, I'm not sure if it will be in the top 10. We'll have to wait and see the list. It might be, I don't know, but we'll have to wait. But also good book. Also, I chose this book to pit them against each other because they receive almost the similar hype on Bookstagram. They're both so popular. They're both based in Africa. The setting is African. The covers even have the same color, so I just felt this will be good going into the battle of the books with as the beginning. And that's it. Kintu for this round. Maybe when I do another battle of the books and another book wins, it might be Kintu versus that other book, like in a semi-final sort of thing. But for now, that's all. Let me know in the comments if you've read any of these two books, which one you prefer over the other, and you can also drop some suggestions of books with similar vibes that you would like to see a battle of the books for. But that's all for today, guys. I'll see you in the next video. Ciao.